Ladies and gentlemen, friends of all of us here all around the world, my name is Jeff DeVerter, and holy cow, am I excited to be back. Welcome to 2024, first episode of the year. I'm so glad that you guys are joining us here today. It's going to be a great show. I don't think you have any idea some of the amazing things we're going to talk about today. You know what? If you thought AI was cool last year, wait till you hear it this year. All right, Daniel, let's roll that stinger and get into the show. Well, I certainly do hope that you guys had an amazing break. Oh, that's too quick. There we go. Amazing break. Over the holidays, if you got some time away. I sure hope that you did. I want to personally welcome you to Cloud Talk Live. My name is Jeff DeVerter. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist for us here at Rackspace Technology. Now, just like the things say right there, all the rules still apply. It's a brand new year, but the rules still apply. Please introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you are. It's going to make this conversation so much more fun if we know who we're talking to. Now, and not just talking to, but talking with, because once I bring my guest up and we get into the conversation, as you know, we'd love for you to contribute your thoughts. You know, what do you think about some of the AI-centric things that we're going to be talking about? And as soon as we see some folks popping in here, we're going to bring them up on the screen. So if you want to see your face shining, oh, and there we go. First are showing up. Canada. Oh, and I thought it was cold here. Cindy and I are going to talk a lot about the cold because we're from Texas and we're wimps. So go ahead and introduce yourselves. Glad, Rajesh, that you've made it in from Canada. By the way, Rajesh, how cold is it there this morning? I'd love to know. Katrina from Florida, balmy Florida. I'm sure it's delightful down there. Hey, how was y'all's break? Did you get some time away? Did you dig into some learning? Did you pick up a book and escape into some sort of an adventure? I read a really interesting one about. Well, I listened to it, let's be honest, about a sailing adventure out of England in the 1600s that went down out of England, south of, around Cape Horn, South Africa, and oh, what a disaster it was. Couldn't even imagine living through any of that. So I'd love to know what you guys found. Ooh, 5 degrees. Who said it was 5 degrees? Can I solve the, yeah, no. San Antonio's here, India's here, Pennsylvania is here. Katrina says rainy and cooler here. All right, Katrina in Florida, rainy in Florida. Ex-racker from India. Once a racker, always a racker. You may not be getting a paycheck, but you're always part of the tribe here at Rackspace. If you guys want to get a hold of us, send an email to solve@rackspace.com. We'll get right back with you. All right. Well, as you know, this program over here is part of the Solve program. It's also, we have a podcast as well. The audio from these eventually find their way over there. So I'd encourage, Rajesh in Canada, minus 15 degrees. It was plus 15 here this morning. Can you believe that? I can't. All right, so send us an email. Also, sign up for the podcast. I'd love for you to do that. You can find it anywhere podcasts are found. And it's a great podcast. You can also find more information about all of the thought leadership here at Rackspace, and there's a lot of it. We're going to be digging into some really interesting things shortly, and you can find it and more over at rackspace.com/solve. So head on over there and check it out. Hey, Tennessee's in the house. Let me turn this off so I can actually see who it is. 5 degrees in Tennessee. My son is in Nashville. Lots of snow over there. Christian from Vietnam in Asia, glad that you are here as well. UK is here, more from India. And yeah, love that. Once a racker, always a racker. Hey, folks, so as you know, every quarter we go out and survey decision makers in over 10 countries. Can you believe that? 10 countries. And we ask them a series of questions. Now, each year we go out and in these questions, or in these surveys, we come back and write a white paper, and then we bring it back for a Solve Summit. Well, you know what? The Solve Summit's coming here in just a few weeks, and I would love for you to set your reminders for it. You can join us live for that event. It will happen on January 30th at 10 a.m. Central Time. And so I would love for you to join us then. It's going to be a great conversation. We've got some amazing technical rackers, some who are going to get in and join us and talk about our findings for what's happening in 2024. There were some shockers, folks, and let me give you a little hint. The private cloud is alive and well. By the way, remember that link, rackspace.com/solve? Well, you can head over there and download and take a look at the white paper that our conversation is going to be from even now. How about that? But maybe you could do it after we finish our conversation now. So we're going to have folks on from VMware. We're going to have people on from Dell, really experts in their field who are going to talk about all things in the cloud. I'll talk about AI, and it's going to be pretty amazing. So, everyone, I'm so glad that you are being so chatty over there. Denver -1. Kira, I'm so sorry for that. Again, I'm going to complain that it's that it was +15 here where I am. You know who else is dealing with cold Texas weather? Is Cindy Royal, and she is our guest here today. Folks, if you thought we talked a lot about AI last year, AI, it's all about it now. Did you catch last week we did an episode of the AI and You? You should go check that out. You can find it on LinkedIn or over on YouTube. That was a killer conversation. But Cindy is a professor and director for the Media Innovation Lab over at Texas State University. She is a professor. So if we're going to talk about anything AI, who better to invite than the professor? So Daniel, let's bring Cindy on up onto stage. Cindy, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Jeff and everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone that's joining us from around the world.
Yeah, all over the place. Can you believe it?
No. Just watching all those names and places come up is amazing that this many people are joining us for this talk today.
I know, it's super, it's great fun. And the wonderful audience that we have curated and accumulated, sometimes like stray puppies coming along, but they've joined the crew, is really quite amazing. Very encouraging, lots of great questions. And so, folks, as you know, as Cindy and I have our conversation this morning, this is not us talking at you. We'd love to talk with you. So if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make, we'll just pop them in there, and we'll try to grab as many of them as we can. All right, Cindy, this is your first time on the program, but you are not a stranger to some of our production team over here, isn't that right?
That's correct. I am part of a program at Texas State called Digital Media Innovation. It's a degree we launched in 2016. And one of your employees, Megan Fretz, was one of our Digital Media Innovation graduates. She graduated a few years ago, one of the first through the program. And I have asked Megan on several occasions to be a guest speaker in my courses. And so I felt like it was time for me to repay the favor.
Well, she now has gone on to lead all of the things social here at Rackspace. She is one of our, I'll call her executive producers, who helps us bring all of these programs together, maybe even listening and hiding in the background, trying to ensure that I don't bring her up on stage, as I will sometimes do, surprisingly.
We're super proud of Megan and the work that she's been able to do and grow at Rackspace. And she's just one example of the kind of employees that come out of that program that work for tech companies, media companies, startups, really any kind of a company that needs technological expertise, which is everybody these days, right?
So true. Now, Cindy, we're going to get into some conversations about AI here shortly, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that program over at Texas State University and how it's different, because I'm really impressed with how you guys have seen the changes in the marketplace and what's needed by employers and by up-and-coming employees. So maybe talk a little bit about the evolution of the program and what it's all about.
Yeah, I started at Texas State. I can't believe it, but it's been 18 years that I've been there. And we were a pretty traditional mass communication program with journalism, advertising, PR type degrees. And so I started teaching web design and some digital courses to supplement those degrees. But over time, I started thinking that there were these new and emerging roles that were coming up that maybe were not being satisfied by the requirements of the more traditional degrees. And got with a group of faculty. We did some design thinking. We talked about the kinds of students that we wanted to create throughout our program, and came up with this digital media innovation degree that teaches students a little bit about coding, a little bit about social media, a little bit about multimedia, but really just preparing them for anything for the future, so that they understand that things are going to be changing, and they're not only going to work in a digital technological world, but they're going to influence it and have a role in creating it into the future. And we've just been very successful in seeing students move into all kinds of roles with titles that didn't exist maybe when we started the program. They definitely didn't exist when I was starting to think about going into a digital professional world.
Yeah, Cindy, that's really impressive that that a university could pivot that quickly.
Yes,
That
it is, and very difficult to pivot at a university. Many of them have trouble doing that, and I will say it was not an easy route, but in retrospect now, the time that it took to put the proposal together and get it through approval was just, a drop in the bucket compared to what we've been able to achieve since then.
isn't that amazing? Even just having the platform that you could then launch it and then evolve it as the market itself evolves.
Yeah, and one of the ways that I pitched it in the early days was calling it a startup in our program.
I love
And so
that.
that's exactly what it has become.
Isn't that great? I love you. You think about higher ed. We think about universities. The things that don't come to mind are nimble, pivot, quick, aggressive. I think of slow think tanks that are going to ponder. Let's get a committee together to explore this over the next 3 or 4 years. Not let's just put a proposal together and make it happen.
Those are all true. Yes.
So true. Well, and you've become a bit of an expert in the area. You, of course, are here in Texas. Texas State is just up 35 from us, but you've been invited to. You were invited out to go speak about AI to a group, and I'd love for you to tell us that story.
So first of all, I have to preface this. I am no AI expert. I'm sure that there are many AI experts in rack space that can talk more technically about this topic. And I've just been trying to get my head around AI for the past year, really thinking about how it might fit into our program, what our students need to know about it. And last fall, the Women Communicators of Austin contacted me and asked me if I would do like an AI 101. And I almost said no, because again, I don't feel like an expert. But it was one of those things where I felt like, well, this will push me into the space. It'll give me a reason to
Your reason
start
to do a little learning.
to do the research and pull something together. And so I was able to do that for them. But my thinking about AI really started when I attended South by Southwest last March.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I was unimpressed. I had used ChatGPT a little bit and was asking it questions to which I already knew the answers and was getting, maybe 50% correct results. Things just looked
Right.
out of place a lot. And so again, unimpressed. But then I went to South by Southwest, and a lot of the different panels and discussions I went to, they really emphasized that there are different ways to use AI, and being able to learn the ones that are going to be most useful is going to be the most important thing to do. And you should consider your use of AI as more of an intern or an assistant, as opposed to being able to have it do the work for you or to replace
Right.
you.
So, and I love that, and so many have adopted that as the way it be used. I mean, think about Microsoft's own nomenclature, Copilot. We're not saying we want a pilot to do everything. We're wanting somebody to come alongside of us and help us do our day job.
Yeah, and when I thought about it, I was like, I could use an intern, a free one that is there all the time, that's always friendly and awake and, willing to answer any question that I had. And so I started playing with AI after South by Southwest in a variety of different ways. And, and we'll talk about some of those things. I can talk about, personal, professional, but, we're really at the beginning of this. I think there's no one that's like a complete expert at this point, and things are going to be changing as we go into the future.
Well, and the best way, because it's transforming so quickly, I feel like the best way to stay abreast of it is not just, of course, reading and looking at announcements, but to just use it on a day-to-day basis. I've started, there's the browser wars, and I've actually gone back to using Microsoft Edge because I use a PC. And in there, you can bring up the Bing Copilot. So it's ChatGPT effectively baked into the browser that's aware of the browser session you have. And you're able to then ask questions of what's going on in there. Summarize this article. If you're on a shopping site, tell me about the pricing trends of this item over time. All kinds of nifty stuff that you could do with it in real time. And of course, if your organization is paid for Microsoft Copilot, then you've got it baked into the whole Microsoft suite as well. Go ahead, Cindy.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that's the thing that's different now, because AI has been around for a very, very long time. And we're talking like the first thinking about it in the 40s and the 50s. And then over time, different experiments with artificial intelligence have come into play, and then they've gone away because they just never took hold from an investment standpoint. There were two separate, what they call AI winters, one in the
Mhm.
70s and one in the late 80s. And you can think about what was happening in the 70s. The personal computer industry was coming about. In the 80s and early 90s, we're starting to think about the internet. And so that sort of distracted people from AI. But what happened
Mhm.
last year is ChatGPT came about and made things completely accessible, and then everybody started playing with it.
Yeah, and it was interesting to watch as the year progressed. Executives went from, playing with it at home, come up with a menu for the week, or plan a vacation that would be great for my teenage kids as well as my elderly parents that we could all go on together. And it would do these things well. And then the light bulb goes off where they said, all right, well, if I can ask questions about these, my day in the life things, can I ask questions of my company, of my data inside of the organization? Of course, boom, and off we go. Now we've sort of pressed ahead, and before we go back to the story about your conference, I want to call out the fact that Bucharest is here. Liviu, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. First time anybody from Bucharest has been on the program. So welcome. So glad that you are here. And of course, Christian, welcome as well. So let's go back to Austin. Let's go back to the teacher conference. You felt ill prepared. You used it as a catalyst to go and have a few talking points. But tell me, how did that go?
Oh, it was a great event, and I wasn't the only speaker. They had some really fantastic speakers, very young and diverse people, all females. I think everyone who attended was female, except I think there was maybe one male in the whole place. That was the photographer. And so like 100 women showed up, 100 women from Austin showed up to learn more about artificial intelligence. And so my role with this was to set the pace, talk
Yeah.
a little about the history and the background, like I mentioned, and maybe demystify some of the terms that have come up, as well as talk about some of the ways that I had started using it.
Yeah, I don't think that there's ever been a technology that has come to the forefront that we've gotten our hands on to use that comes with more unknowns. FUD, we call it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And, because it goes back to, if you were watching movies in the 80s like I was, you had Terminator. That's an AI-driven thing. You then had, so many others that came along where AI was the bad guy. It was driving the machines. And so then here comes AI for us to get to use. And who wouldn't be nervous about using it? My wife, I love telling this story. My wife, very skeptical about technology. We had a trip we went on up to Denver, not Denver, that's the wrong direction. We were in Boston. I had a work event there. She came along. We were going to stick around for a few days after. Or on the flight going up there. And she's like, what are we going to do Thursday and Friday? And I said, well, let's just do a little experiment. And up came ChatGPT. I said, we're going to be in Boston. It's going to be this Thursday and Friday. I was actually using Bing because it has access to the internet. I said, bearing into account where I'll be, bearing into account the weather, and that my wife is gluten and dairy intolerant, please create a schedule for the day that includes lunch and dinner options that would accommodate that. And off it goes. And she's like, that's not so scary at all, is it?
Not at all. And like, let me ask you this. Did you verify that? Like once you got your list, did you like go to the websites to make sure that those were gluten-free and what they
Well,
said they were?
great question. And that's actually one of the reasons I like to use the Bing version of ChatGPT is it gives you all the citations. So I was able to click into where it found the menus and verify the stuff. And of course, it did all the things. Now, if you've ever gone down that road of needing to accommodate somebody who has those sensitivities, a phone call is always a great idea as well to validate.
Just to be sure. Yeah. And so I think, all the media literacy that we have gained over the past 20, 25 years with the internet is going to become more and more important as we start using AI.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes that co-pilot. So how about the outcome of the conference in Austin?
Well, like I said, there were just, 100 women that came. They had really great questions. I think one of the moments that I saw that was sort of a watershed moment was one of the other presenters asked people to ask ChatGPT to write an email about a new product announcement. And it did it. And these women's heads were exploding. People who do this on a regular basis in their careers were like, oh my goodness, this would have taken me several hours to start crafting, even though they were things that they had done before. And at least it got them started. And, we did examples with social media posts, and ChatGPT will actually put emojis in for you.
Yeah.
But the key thing to remember with this is if it's your intern, you're probably not going to turn in that work as your own. You're going to use
Mhm.
it as a start, edit it, add your own flair to it, and then submit it. So, kind of keeping that in mind right now, then it makes it where it frees up your time to do other things that maybe humans are good at. But I will say, Jeff, I don't
Mhm.
want to skip over the ethical and the concern part because yes, there are valid concerns, and we need people who understand the technology so we can start making decisions about those concerns going into the future. Because where's the data coming from? How's it being programmed? Why am I getting the results that I'm getting? All are things that we need to be thinking about as a society. So I
That's
think
right.
it's good to be a little bit skeptical, and that's why I start with like ask it questions that you already know, so you know
Mhm.
that it's not perfect if it doesn't come out with the right answer, and then start thinking about the things that it's good at.
Yeah. All right. So Sweta asked a really interesting question that I want to get to in just a minute. But at first, we titled this Approachable AI. When we were having our little prep call before, deciding what we're going to chat about, this was a phrase, a word that you used a fair amount. How would you define approachable AI?
I think just because the technologies are available, that makes it accessible and approachable, and for people to just try.
Mhm.
And that is something that I've been doing for the past year. Over Christmas break, I was sitting on the sofa with my sister, showing her different things we can do. And, one of the first things that I did was have it write a bio for me, which is, that thing you always have to do. And you kind of look in your
Right.
email for the one you did before and you update it. If you should try it. Now, there's a lot of information about me on the web because I'm a professor and I
Yeah.
have put a lot of things on the web. But even for my sister, I had it write one for her, and she's not as well known on the web, but it wrote one for her that she could definitely start with that she felt was pretty good. And if you haven't done that, you should try it because it will make you feel like you're the greatest,
Pretty
most
fancy person.
prominent, most renowned. It's very
Yep.
good at like puffing you up, and I would have to like pull out some of those things that
Yeah.
are like too uh, uh, just too much.
A little grandiose, maybe.
Yes, a little grandiose, but it's very nice to read that. It's like, oh, that's very nice that you think of
Yeah.
me in that
Whenever you're
light.
feeling down, just
Yeah.
ask ChatGPT to encourage you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, we did a lot of crazy things because we both like Taylor Swift. And so we were asking different things about, putting Taylor Swift lyrics in various different types of context for
Yeah.
either social media posts or to, write different sorts of things like using various pop cultural things. Because that's one of the things you can do is when you ask it to write something, you can ask it to write it in any particular style. I mean, you can ask it anything and see how it
Really.
does, but write
Yeah.
it like Ernest Hemingway, or write it in the style of your favorite artist, your favorite, or even if you're doing something with images, have it be in the style of Van Gogh or the style of Picasso. They're just, it's just fun to start playing with.
It's always interesting to have a conversation with an academic and understand the differences between myself and them. And you have it speak in the words of Hemingway. I make it speak in the words of in the tone of Seinfeld, and it does a quite good job of
Yeah.
mimicking Seinfeld, by the way. Because
I
AI is and should be approachable. We shouldn't be afraid of it. We should be willing to use it. We should be cautious about it, and we shouldn't submit its work as our own. It should be a starting block to help us be our best selves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are some places online. If you Google OpenAI examples, there is a
Mm.
place that gives a whole list of various examples of things you can do. You use the example of doing something on a travel basis. What are the top things I need to see in this area? If you had done that before with Google, you'd come up with a list of websites that you have to read through and decide for yourself the things you want to do. So at least this kind of gives you a start of, maybe the 10 things you want to see in Denver or New York or
Right.
Rome or, wherever you're going. One of the ones on that list was create a rap battle. And I did one between Harry Styles and Taylor Swift, and it was hilarious.
I'll have to
So,
look
so
at that.
try that. Go into ChatGPT and have it do a rap battle between
I
your
will.
favorite
I think I'm going to
artists.
go to Google, funniest things to put into ChatGPT. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Hey, but let's talk about Sweta's comment and where she talks about what about the IMF report that 40 to 60% of jobs will be affected by AI. Now, I want to break this into a couple pieces. So first of all, let's talk about jobs. Will jobs be affected? I think that you and I would both agree that yes, they will be affected. Now, we have to put some definition around what we mean by affected too, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine that there will be many jobs that won't be affected by AI. When you think about the way that we use the internet and the way we use search so prevalently in our professional lives, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to change the way that we receive and share information significantly. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think that in 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this time of Googling as sort of the dark ages of getting information. This
Yes.
more sort of chat oriented, an agent looks at the information and provides the answer to you is going to be the way that it goes in the future. And so the people who adapt to that are going to be the ones that are going to be most useful in this environment, most hireable and employable. And the ones who kind of hold off on it may have trouble in the future.
Yeah, I heard, and I was just looking on my phone for the podcast I was listening to on Jordan Harbinger's show. He was interviewing somebody a couple of weeks ago. I was trying to get his name. Just if anybody wants to know who it is, just send me a message on LinkedIn. But he made a comment that I kept rewinding on and just pondering and thinking about. And it's so true. Whenever a new technology comes along, we can only see what will be impacted. We can only see what will be taken down. So along comes the automobile. We can only see that horses are going to be impacted. Along comes electricity. We can only see that the oil and whale oil industry is going to be impacted. We can only see, in a sense, the negative side of it. We can never see what's going to be created. And so, Sweta, to your point, yes, I would think the number really should be in the 90s. We will, almost every job is going to be impacted. Now, whether impacted means lost, or whether impacted means diminished, whether it means changed, whether it means augmented, we could have 5 conversations on that.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that will come up in your talk that you do from the report that you're going to be presenting.
100%. Yeah. So what I would say for everyone is that especially if you have a little concern about it, Sweta, that's right. It all comes down to change management, doesn't it? Is how are you going to manage your own personal change management? I think that's important. But then also your organization. So it starts with you. I love that this program that we talked about early on that Cindy's a part of, from an organized education perspective, is giving so many people a leg up into the economy that they might not have had before. But more so is to take control of your own education and your own future, and that means approaching that approachable AI now, doesn't it, Cindy?
Absolutely. I mean, that's all that we can do is kind of like get on board and hang on.
All right, so in preparation for today, I created this list of conversation topics for Cindy and I to go through. And she sent me a note last night going, hey, send me those over, would you please? And I said, well, here they are. We'll probably only get through maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 of them.
How many did we hit?
One of them, the very first, well, maybe it's 2. We got the introduction.
We did get beyond the introductions.
All right, so that means and there are 10 on here. So that means you have 8 more invitations to come back, and we will take each of these independently, because we are at the top of the hour. How did that happen so fast?
How did that happen? It went so fast, but I do know how fast these things can go, and I'm happy to come back when I have trained myself and provided myself with a little bit more knowledge in each of those areas.
Wonderful. Cindy, I know that you have a profile out on LinkedIn, and so folks, I'd encourage you to go find her over there and follow what she's up to. She will certainly be back here as the year progresses. But Cindy, we didn't even talk about the cold weather too much once you showed up here, but you ended up with a day to yourself because classes were canceled. Why, folks? Because it was cold. Welcome to Texas.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I've enjoyed watching everybody's comments.
Yeah, I loved having you on, Cindy. Thank you so much, and I look forward to you coming back as the year goes on. So have a great rest of your day. Folks, I want to remind you that in 2 weeks, that's at 10 o'clock Central Time, on the 30th, there's already an event out on LinkedIn because, well, Megan Fleming-Fretz is amazing, is our Solve Summit, What to Expect from the Cloud and AI Technologies in 2024. Just go look for that over on LinkedIn. I'm going to send invitations out to anybody that I know to find, but I'd love for you to be there. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our first Cloud Talk Live of the year. Cindy is going to be back. She's delightful. She's brilliant. And she makes AI so approachable. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. We will see you back here in a couple of weeks for the summit. And until then, everyone, my name is Jeff Diverter for Cloud Talk Live, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Daniel, roll the close.